And I'm also going to share my screen, I hope. Yes, I am.
That's always exciting.
All right. Here. Okay. So thank you everybody that's here virtually and in person. Thank you for coming. I am Jenni Berman. I'm a physician assistant. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the practice here in a few minutes. But our goal today is to be talking about how to improve your overall quality of life. So gut health, energy levels, sleep, and helping you to reach your goal weight and be able to maintain that if that is a goal for you. Can everybody hear me okay on the Zoom? Okay. Like I said, we're going to be talking about gut health, vitamin deficiencies, cortisol levels, which is our stress hormone, talking about blood sugar stability and overall macronutrients so that we can really accomplish all the healthy living goals. So Berman Health and Wellness is my practice. It's in downtown Naples, although we do work virtually as well. And our goal is to help individuals to reach their goal weight and improve their gut health to overall improve their quality of life, hopefully avoiding all the needless medications and just achieving the highest quality of life imaginable. So I always like to start out by asking a few questions, and nobody has to raise their hand, but just some things to start thinking about as we are going through this seminar today. And some of the questions are, do you ever wish you could lose that 5 to 10 pounds, especially in the abdominal area? Have you tried to eliminate certain food groups and just feel like you're not getting better, whether it's your energy levels, your weight, your headaches, your skin issues, your thyroid disease? Do you ever feel restricted on what you can eat and it's not a maintainable lifestyle for you? Any issues with sleeping through the night? So you're waking up in the middle of the night or you're having trouble falling asleep, you're crashing at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's a big thing that we're going to be talking about. Do you find that you're craving? So you crave mid afternoon or evenings after dinner, whether it's something salty, something sweet, something crunchy? Trying fad diets and wondering, is this really going to work for me? The intermittent fasting, should I be doing that? Should I be doing keto? These are all things we're going to be talking about today when we get to the macronutrients. So just some pictures of our past clients. So here we go. We're going to start diving into the nitty gritty now. So the first thing I want to talk about is your gut. Our gut is our second brain. We have our brain. Obviously, our heart needs to be pumping for us to be living, but our gut is ultimately what we call our second brain. Without our gut health, we really don't have anything else. We don't have a proper metabolism. We don't have proper skin health. We get migraines. Our energy is horrible. Our stress response is bad. So the gut is the second brain. Over 70% of our immune system actually starts in the gut itself. Over 90% of our dopamine, which is our upper hormone, our happy hormone, actually comes from the gut. It's developed in the gut. So again, without a healthy gut, we're not going to have that happy hormone and we're going to have a very weakened immune system. So let's talk about the causes of leaky gut. There's many causes that can lead to us having what we call leaky gut or gut permeability, if anybody's ever heard of those words. This might be our food, and it could be food that you've been eating for the past 20 to 30 years that have never caused a problem for you, but now they are. Could be medications. It could actually be a stress response. So cortisol is a stress hormone coming from our adrenal glands that we're going to talk more about. And cortisol can actually break down our gut lining. So being able to control cortisol levels despite the exogenous or outside stressors we have in our life is really important. The gut lining itself, we have little villi and structures in our intestinal tract that are supposed to be nice and tight and closed and move forward and backwards to move particles through and really allow stool to pass through the intestinal lining, but they're also here to absorb our nutrients. And when those structures are damaged, they're broken down, break apart, this is actually what leads to the leaky gut syndrome, where food particles and toxins and bacteria can actually pass out of the intestinal tract into our tissues. So we have now food coming in, passing through, toxins getting into our tissues and into our bloodstream, and that is not normal for our immune system. Our immune system reacts to that. So when we have these particles and toxins getting into the tissue, the immune system says, I have to start fighting. And that's where our body is constantly feeling in a fight or flight state. but it actually develops what we call antibodies. Antibodies are immune markers that then go systemically through our body, and that's where autoimmune disease comes from. So Hashimoto's disease, migraines, eczema, psoriasis, rheumatoid arthritis, Sjogren's, lupus, all of these things actually come from the antibody development from our intestinal tract. So it affects us head to toe, inside to outside. Leaky gut can also lead to vitamin deficiencies because if those villi are damaged and broken down, it's not actually absorbing any nutrients. So then we get things like a vitamin B deficiency, D deficiency, magnesium deficiency, which certainly can impact our overall metabolic rate and how we're feeling. Symptoms of leaky gut. Of course, we all know about the bloating and the abdominal pain, but that's not just it. A lot of people don't realize they have a leaky gut because they say, oh, I have normal bowel movements, my stomach never bothers me. But you have the headaches, you have the afternoon fatigue, you have the eye issues, you have dry skin. All of these are also symptoms of a leaky gut as well. So talking about reversing leaky gut, because you can repair the gut lining, you can make it strong again, you can reverse the effects of leaky gut, and we have to walk through what that looks like. First and foremost, we have to identify what's causing the leaky gut. Is it a medication? Is it the cortisol level? Is it a food that we're eating where we have a food sensitivity or allergy? Many people, again, will say, I don't have any food issues. I eat all the time and nothing bothers me. But there is something at the end of the day that is causing this leaky gut. And most of the time, it is a food sensitivity as opposed to a food allergy. Food sensitivities are oftentimes evaluated via blood. So the skin testing is more allergy testing versus sensitivity testing is via blood. They're two different immunoglobulins. So we have immunoglobulin G, which is a sensitivity, and immunoglobulin E, which is an allergen. We have to look at both of them. Our body can react the same to sensitivities as it can to allergies. So very important to identify the trigger of leaky gut initially. And then there's an entire gut healing protocol. So different amino acids like L-glutamine and inositol that can be very helpful, making sure we're replacing the vitamins that we're deficient in that are important for cellular growth and development, vitamin B12, iron, magnesium, all very important. And there's an entire protocol as far as giving time for the gut to heal and then reintroducing our foods back into our diet. In addition to the food aspect of it, again, we have to control cortisol levels and blood sugar levels. Sugar is inflammatory. So if we have unstable blood sugar levels, it's going to take much longer for our body to heal. Some of the most common inflammatory foods that we see when we do sensitivity testing: gluten, dairy, almond, egg, soy, and corn are the top six for food sensitivities that we see. Now, of course, there's things that our test shows some people have a sensitivity to yeast or to coconut or to certain proteins like chicken or turkey, certain fish. So we are able to see all of that on a food sensitivity test. So I want to go a little bit deeper into vitamin levels. As we mentioned with leaky gut, that's the first thing that happens is we're not absorbing our nutrients. And there's certain vitamin levels that are extremely important for us to be able to function on a daily basis. If we have a magnesium deficiency, we oftentimes will feel a little bit more anxious, maybe depressed. We won't sleep through the night or have difficulty falling asleep. We may have constipation or headaches with a magnesium deficiency. So that is huge. Same with iron. Iron is really important. Iron deficiency can lead to restless leg syndrome, lack of endurance, fatigue, specifically later in the day or in the afternoon. Vitamin B12 is also an energy vitamin, not only with how we feel as far as energy goes, but energy for our metabolism and being able to burn fat. Vitamin D is really important, obviously, for our bones, but we've heard over the last 4 years with the media telling us how important it is for the immune system. It certainly is important for that as well. However, vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin, so we can take too much and we can get to toxic levels of vitamin D, which then will also cause diarrhea and headaches and the GI symptoms. So we want to make sure our levels are actually where they're supposed to be. looking at your vitamin levels via blood is really important, and that's something that must go into this gut healing protocol and optimizing our overall health. Back to vitamin D deficiency can also cause depression or anxiety as well, so it is very important. So this slide just kind of talks about some of those that I already spoke about. Some other mineral deficiencies can occur too, like a folate deficiency, which again is really important for our mood stabilization and for overall longevity. Our omegas, which we hear a lot about in relation to cholesterol values, but also very important for our mood stability. Amylase and lipase are our enzymes from the gallbladder that are really important to be able to break down fats and digest our food. So that's another one. So overall, again, just looking at these vitamin levels is extremely important. So talking more about cortisol, cortisol is a stress hormone coming from the adrenal glands. It's released in all situations as far as stress goes, not just being a wife, a mom, a worker, coworker, a daughter, a dog mom, all these things cause stress for sure, but there's also internal stressors like the food sensitivities or having these vitamin deficiencies that can also cause cortisol levels to elevate. Too intensive exercise, too much cardiovascular exercise, too low of a carbohydrate diet can also cause cortisol levels to elevate. So again, there's a lot of aspects that go into our stress axis within our body. In addition, the cortisol is a part of what we call the HPA axis, hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, which is our entire stress axis in our body. Hypothalamus and pituitary are in the brain, and they also play into our female hormones as far as ovarian function, and can cause our testosterone levels to become abnormal, can cause our estrogen and progesterone levels to become abnormal, and that will negative feedback to the cortisol to release more cortisol, which we know is not good for us. Again, too much cortisol will break down our gut lining. Cortisol is a steroid and it will break down the gut lining, and we're back in this vicious cycle of the gut being unhealthy and the cortisol being too high. High cortisol levels can also increase our blood sugar. So it can make us have a little bit more of a blood sugar instability or prediabetes, insulin resistance. And vice versa, blood sugar instability can cause our cortisol levels to rise. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the importance of blood sugar stability and how we do that for our entire metabolic function. So even with this exogenous outside stressors that we have, is it possible to control cortisol levels? Absolutely. Now, of course, we're not going to take away the financial issues or the roles that you have in your life, but we can teach the HPA axis how to control that response so we're not in a constant fight or flight. And that will help with mood stability, energy levels, and sleep as well. Cortisol should naturally spike around 6 a.m. and come down during the day and get to its lowest point at midnight. If our cortisol levels are unstable during the day and the night, we're not going to get that restful, adequate sleep because cortisol should make us rise. It should help us to fight and flight. So we really need to get in a better routine of allowing the cortisol levels to come down to their lowest point through the night so we can sleep through. And again, this comes back to, is our magnesium where it should be? Are certain vitamins where they should be? Is our blood sugar stable? During the day, if our blood sugar is spiking and falling all day long, the cortisol is going to do the same thing during the day. It's not just going to stop that pattern at night, that's going to continue. So coming down to cortisol control, not only do we need to look at our vitamin levels and take our amino acids like L-theanine, which is a natural amino acid that does help with reducing cortisol levels, but we also have to really focus on this blood sugar stability. So you've probably heard of prediabetes, hyperglycemia, diabetes, but there's also something called insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is like the pre-diabetes. So before the doctors will even tell you that your blood sugar is abnormal, you can identify if you're insulin resistant. Some of the symptoms of insulin resistance: being hungry, just finding that you're never satisfied with what you're eating, craving carbohydrates and sugar, crashing in the afternoon. So 2, 3 o'clock, you're crashing, waking up between 2 and 4 in the morning, and you just can't go back to sleep until an hour later, you finally go back to sleep. Waking up in the morning and you're not hungry for breakfast. That's a big sign of insulin resistance or blood sugar stability as well. Brain fog, lethargy, these are also symptoms. Weight gain, not being able to burn that abdominal fat. We have a lot of women, especially in their 40s, 50s, 60s, that say, I've never had this flat tire, and now no matter what I do, I can't get rid of it. And a lot of times it's a blood sugar instability issue. So we look at blood sugar and insulin resistance by looking at not only the waist circumference, but our good cholesterol value, our hemoglobin A1C, which is the average of your blood sugar over 90 days, your insulin level, and your fasting blood sugar level. Triglycerides, which is also part of the cholesterol panel as well, is also directly to sugar and carbohydrates. So we look at these things via blood to be able to evaluate insulin resistance even before you become that pre-diabetic or diabetic. So how do we treat blood sugar stability? Of course, first we have to look at the lab values. Then we have to evaluate our meal plan and see, okay, where are we getting our proteins, carbohydrates, and fats in our diet, and are they as balanced as they should be? We have to make sure we're replacing the micronutrient deficiencies. So a vitamin D deficiency can actually increase the risk of insulin resistance, as can low magnesium and B12, like we've already talked about. We've talked about cortisol control, how important that is to stabilizing blood sugar. We need to focus on sleep and making sure that we're actually getting adequate restful sleep at night, which is one of those vicious cycles of, if your blood sugar is unstable, you're not going to sleep, but we need you to sleep to get your blood sugar stable. So we have to work through that. Evaluating for things like sleep apnea, which can certainly cause blood sugar levels to elevate. Is your blood pressure controlled? That's going to be really important as well. And then obviously the exercise. We have to be able to get oxygen to our cells to regulate glucose levels. So really talking about the exercise. We look at lifestyle changes, accountability, tracking. All of this is important. So this is where I want to bring in macronutrients. In our practice, we don't focus at all on calories. I had somebody text me the other day, they're MyFitnessPal, and they're like, I only have 400 calories left. I don't care. Get your protein in. I'm not focused on your calories. That's not important to me. We have to focus on your protein, your carbohydrates, and your fats, and the balance behind that. You're going to need a certain amount of calories and you're going to need a certain amount of calories, but your macro levels are going to be totally different. And so we have to really focus on with what your goals are, whether it is weight loss or gut healing or gaining lean muscle or toning. We really have to focus on what's going to be the right fuel for your body specifically. In some people, having too much fat, especially saturated fat in their diet, can make their blood sugar levels go up. It's not always related to carbohydrates per se. So when we talk about that, we tend to be a little bit more protein heavy with our practice, but it really is specific to the individual. Protein every 2 to 3 hours is typically the key factor to stabilizing blood sugar throughout the day. It takes longer for our body to break it down. It takes more energy for our body to break it down. Thus, it helps to stabilize blood sugar levels. All right. So proteins, we have our complete proteins and incomplete proteins. So that's something that we educate on is, what is a complete protein versus not. Complete proteins have all 9 of the essential amino acids. So something like collagen powder is not a complete source of protein. It's a great added protein, but it's not going to be your complete source of protein for all the amino acids. Carbohydrates, we have simple carbs and complex carbs. Complex carbohydrates are going to spike your blood sugar less than a simple carbohydrate. Simple carbs will make your blood sugar spike right up. So things like your vegetables are going to be more of your complex carb versus your simple carb are going to be more of your sugars and your sweets and flours. In that middle zone is going to be things like your sweet potatoes and your beans and your lentils. Fats, we have our saturated fats, which are more of the unhealthy fats, and then our unsaturated fats, which are our healthy fats. So really focusing on the avocados, olive oils, nuts and seeds versus the red meats, processed oils, and coconut oil actually is a very high saturated fat. So looking at labels, and I know you guys can't see this very well here in person, but it's going to get emailed out. When looking at labels, we really want to be focusing on the proteins, the carbs, the fats. If you want to know if it's a lean protein, essentially the protein will be 2 times the fat content. So if you're looking at a label and it says the protein is 14 and the fat is 16, probably not a great choice as far as protein goes because it's not as lean, versus something where if the protein is 20 and the fat is 6, then that's going to be a better option for you. With that being said, fat is not bad if it's, again, the unsaturated fat, which typically on the label it will show you what the saturated fat level is. Looking at carbohydrates, now to understand the net carbohydrates, which is the amount of carbs that your body will actually utilize, will be by looking at the total carbs and subtracting out the fiber. The more fiber it has, the lower your net carbohydrates will be, which again will cause a lower blood sugar spike on the body. Sugar alcohol is also in that. So you typically will add the fiber and sugar alcohol together to get the net carbs. Not every label has a sugar alcohol on it. Sugar alcohol theoretically is supposed to also spike blood sugar less than regular sugar will. So the things like xylitol and erythritol and maltitol are going to have less of a blood sugar spike, and they also contain less calories than regular sugar, which is why we're able to utilize those to lower the net carbohydrates. With that being said, I don't push the sugar alcohols, but it happens. So again, we've already talked about this, really focusing on balancing your proteins, carbs, and fats is not only important for your weight and blood sugar stability, but really just reducing overall inflammation because sugar is inflammatory. Protein will provide the energy to our cells to maintain blood sugar throughout the day to help with our energy levels and the cravings as well. So knowing how many protein or what your macros should be, that's very individualized, again, based on goals, based on your body composition, based on the medications that you're taking, the supplements that you're taking, and what your blood sugar looks or what your blood evaluation looks like. So we really work to individualize the macronutrients. Generally speaking, most of our females that are not over exercising are getting somewhere between 100 to 120 grams of protein a day, which for a lot of you will be like, what? That's a lot. But that is, a general consensus of the amount of protein we need to provide the right energy to our body. Now, we may have some individuals who are getting 130 to 140 grams of protein per day, just depending on their activity level and, again, some of their goals. As far as fats go, we're somewhere between 60 and 80 grams of fat generally for a female. So this is going to talk a little bit about other areas to look at on labels. So looking at sodium. Sodium is not bad. I want to say that as much as I can. Sodium is not bad if it's the right type of sodium, of course. I don't want you going out and eating all the packaged foods and frozen meals that are full of sodium. But certainly the things that are in the Archer Farms meat sticks, that sodium is not going to hurt you. Putting a little salt on your meal is not going to hurt you. Our body actually needs sodium. Getting the right electrolyte replacement with sodium is extremely important, especially here in Southwest Florida where it's 100 degrees and you're exercising. Sugar and sugar alcohols, we've already talked about that a little bit. If you are avoiding certain foods like gluten, dairy, corn, soy, looking at the label and seeing there's usually a bold thing that says contains, and it will tell you if it contains milk or dairy or wheat or gluten. So being able to evaluate that on a food label is really important.
What about the processed, a lot, like things in the store are processed with, like the machines process something?
Yep. So, and it will say that in the fine print, if you can't hear on here, it'll say may contain, or this may have been processed in a facility that what contains gluten, dairy. It really depends on the extent of the sensitivity, in my opinion.
Okay.
Majority of the time, unless you're like celiac, if it says processed in a facility that contains gluten, but there's no gluten or wheat ingredients in the list, I generally find that that's okay because it's going to be less than 500 micrograms, especially if it's stamp certified gluten free or dairy free or vegan or whatever it is, but it still says that they can only stamp it if it contains less than 500 micrograms per unit of that particular food group. So generally safe. Now, if it were somebody who's, severely celiac and it says that, I would probably say no go because for celiac patients, this is a side note, but an interesting fact. For celiac patients who are non compliant with a gluten free meal plan, which means they consume 500 micrograms of gluten one time a month, it will increase their early mortality tenfold. And it's just because, again, the gut is our second brain. And so if we consume 500 micrograms once a month, it's sending our immune system into a response enough that it will cause a catastrophic, inflammatory response as far as autoimmune disease. Um, so that was, I know, kind of quick and a lot of information, but I want to have time to be able to answer questions for anybody that is on here in regards to blood testing, cortisol levels, reading labels. That was a great question.
Well, I'm having just health issues in general, but anyways, on another note, yeah. But one thing I wanted to know that I started doing that seems to help is, which I'm knowing I have to maybe reduce fat coconut milk in my golden milk, is I've been taking my vitamins with my golden milk.
Okay. Yeah. And so that's actually not bad because the calcium behind it is gonna help with the binding of the vitamins. So it's not bad. Coconut itself is not bad. It's more the oils that come from the coconut are higher in saturated fat. Now, not bad depending on what the rest of your day looks like as far as fat intake goes. And if you're exercising, your body's going to utilize more of the fat stores as far as the macros go. So it may not necessarily be that you need to change what you're doing. I probably wouldn't do that along with taking MCT oil, along with having,
I've been doing the Rebel MCT mushroom chocolate milk, which I love so much.
Okay.
And that's probably my highest fat content things in the day, but they're so incredibly good. It's like hard for me not
to have. And again, if you're getting enough fiber in your diet and you're getting other sources of unsaturated fats and you're exercising, your cholesterol values may be clear and your CT calcium score may be great. There's other factors that are going to play into how much fat you're getting and is your body actually tolerating it. However, fat, it takes a lot of digestive enzymes to break down fat. And so if you are having some digestive issues, you may not be digesting all of the fat that you're consuming. So that's, certainly something to look into. If you guys have questions on here, you can type them in the chat or you can take yourself off mute and ask them. I'm happy to answer questions.
See that next year.
Do they have any questions?
Not yet. Does anybody on here have any questions? You want to come off mute and ask or chat? Okay. Yeah.
How do you feel about dates, like in their sugar content, like for like a shake,
Fiber
like
content.
blended together with other bananas and other things, but I didn't realize like the almond milk, what should we put with that? If a lot of people have almond sensitivity, is there a better milk to utilize?
Good question. So if you can't hear, she's asking about dates, and then if we're using almond milk, although we're finding a lot of people with almond sensitivities, is there a better milk? So I don't mind dates. The serving size for dates is 3, and you want to be careful with what you're pairing it with. So I always say if you're gonna have a fruit or a sugar, we have to pair it with a protein. The protein is gonna help to reduce the glycemic response, meaning the blood sugar response that your body has. dates are good for fiber and for the bowel consistency. So I would just always make sure you're pairing the dates with a protein, like if you are using them in a shake. I would also be mindful of what else you're pairing them with. So bananas are very high in sugar as well. So I probably wouldn't pair dates and bananas together unless you're doing like one date and a half a banana, or 2 dates and a quarter of a banana. Then you could do that, but I wouldn't do 3 dates and a whole banana, right? For sugar.
Could she do like the dates and use an avocado or
Sure.
something for
A healthy fat.
consistency?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had this wonderful drink and it was so good, and it had, maybe it just like reduced the banana, but then
Yeah.
adding protein in it, the one protein that doesn't really have a taste is that one that carries the water, that holds a lot of water. Bodybuilders use it. I got it. I really like it.
Whey protein.
No,
Oh,
it's,
okay.
it's just creatine.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So
So,
I
and
do like only a quarter of a scoop.
creatine's not a complete source of protein either.
Mhm.
So that's something else to be mindful of. I would look into, especially if you have GI issues, I would look into a vegan or a plant-based protein powder to use.
Yeah, I use plant-based on every other thing, but I read just some stuff about like microdosing creatine and adding it to your regular protein and its usefulness for hydration.
Creatine is not bad at all, but you want to make sure you're still getting a good complete protein source with it. And you know, how much creatine are you taking? For a female, I wouldn't do more than 3 grams consistently of creatine. But there are many protein powders out there. Ambrosia planta is one that makes an unflavored protein powder. So if you don't want to change the taste, you may look at the ambrosia unflavored. We, in our office, we carry ambrosia, we carry True Supplements, TRU, and then Bomar. In my opinion, I've tried like a million plant-based proteins, and those generally are the best tasting ones that don't have a lot of added junk in them. As far as the milk that you asked about, the almond milk is not necessarily bad if you don't have an almond sensitivity. However, you won't know that until you do the blood testing. I generally will recommend something called Ripple milk, which Publix does carry, but it's a plant-based milk and it's high in protein and actually has more calcium in it than majority of the other dairy-free milks. So like my daughter drinks it because she's dairy free, and obviously the kids need the calcium. So it has almost the same amount of calcium that regular cow's milk has. So that would be my recommendation for a anti-inflammatory dairy-free milk. We also will rotate in oat milk or cashew milk or coconut milk, which are all fine to do depending on your own sensitivities. And coconut or oat milk, you know, generally will be a little higher in carbohydrates, but again, if you're pairing it with your protein and balancing it in your day, it's okay to do. Obviously, the unsweetened ones are always recommended, so you don't get the added sugar. How do you like electrolytes is a question we had here, and absolutely, I think electrolytes are extremely important, especially depending on the amount of water you're drinking. I will generally recommend individuals to get at least 80 ounces of water a day, but I would love it if you could get a gallon of water a day. Like that's, you know, somewhere between that 80 to 124 ounces is really the range we want to be in, which is hard.
No, I'm just laughing because we just did bingo last month, and one of the boxes, I was like trying to give them some easier things. I said, drink 90 ounces of water for 5 days straight. When the client said to me, she's like, "No, you can drink too." She was a little bit of an older client. She said, "You can drink too much water." And I said, but that's not a good gauge.
Right.
Strengthening of the pelvic floor probably was sending her to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Well, but I said, you know, like the way that I do it is, you know, using like one of our 30 or 40 ounce cups, and like it's just that's truly for me the only way that I can
get it all in. You put a straw in your cup. People think I'm crazy when I say that, but it will really help you to drink more water if you do put a straw in. And get a 30-ounce cup so you can really monitor how much you're drinking. You can drink too much water, but that often comes with depleting your electrolytes. Well, if you're replacing your electrolytes appropriately, if you're getting the right macronutrients and sodium levels through your food, it's going going to be okay. But with that being said, if you're drinking a gallon of water a day, you certainly need to replace at least 24 ounces of that with some type of electrolytes. The thing to be careful about is a lot of electrolytes out there have a ton of sugar in them. Like the liquid IVs are really popular. Those have 11 grams of sugar in them per packet, which is just crazy. But there are, things like Smart Water doesn't taste like anything, but has electrolytes in it. The Propel Zero, Ghost is a protein line that makes electrolytes.
Gatorade has a new one that's, I think, really good. At least it tastes good, and I wasn't feeling good, and it helped me a ton. Their
Okay.
new Gatorade.
Is it a zero, I assume?
No, it's
or
low sugar, but there's
Okay.
it just was really
an optimal one.
How do you feel about salt?
Salt tablets.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do salt tablets. The difference between salt tablets and electrolytes is it doesn't contain the magnesium and potassium behind it. And we really want to make sure we're balancing sodium and potassium. So I generally will recommend salt tablets in my patients with cardiac function issues. So POTS or cardiovascular disease, then we will use salt tablets more because they typically will already have a higher potassium level. So it's just really important to make sure you're monitoring. Again, it all comes down to who's evaluating your lab work and are you getting it done consistently enough to make sure you're doing the right things for your body. We also asked about fermented foods. And, I am okay with fermented foods, the kimchi and the cabbage, all of those are great. They're not going to have a ton of the absorbable fiber. So that's the difference is yes, you can consume them, but we still need to be getting in our cooked vegetables. And that's where more of the fiber that our body actually absorbs for cholesterol values and satiety and gut health is going to come from. Raw vegetables and fermented foods, especially the vegetables, they're non-soluble fiber. So it's great. They're good roughage, but it's just going to help with passing through the bowels, not necessarily absorbing the nutrients.
What about Celtic sea salt?
I'm okay with that, like putting on your food.
Or even like dusting it in your water.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. It's again, salt is not bad. It's great to do, especially if you are drinking a gallon of water, as long as you're making sure you're getting enough magnesium and potassium as well. And the magnesium, potassium may come from your food if your gut is absorbing it. But if you have a leaky gut, you may not be absorbing those nutrients as well either. Good questions. We carry a brand in our office of supplements called Pure Encapsulations, and it's a very clean line of supplements. They're hypoallergenic, don't have any additives. They carry an electrolyte powder that we'll typically use. And then True Supplements, which is that protein powder line that we carry, they also they have a good electrolyte powder as well.
And where downtown exactly are you located?
We're at Goodlet and Fifth Avenue North. So the French Quarter is there. It's a brick building, right across from the Rooster. We're in that building there.
Okay.
Yep. And we work with our clients one-on-one. So we do an initial evaluation. We do blood testing on our clients. Unless you've already had blood work done, then I'm happy to look at what you've already had done. If there's anything additional we need, then we do that. And then we work with our clients on a weekly basis on dietary adjustments based on what their goals are. If they are having health issues or gut health issues or weight management issues, we really zone in and individualize the plan based on what the goals are. I have a nutritionist on staff. I have another nurse practitioner coming in August. And so as a team, we work to develop that individualized meal planning, whether we do food sensitivity testing or not. But working on a weekly basis is not only important for your accountability, but more so we can make sure we're reaching the goals we want to reach. We can make adjustments every week when you're coming in, as opposed to telling you to go do something for a month and then you're frustrated because it didn't work. So, does insurance cover any of the blood testing? And initially, when we do blood work on our clients, we do it in our office outside of insurance because I don't usually have all the diagnosis codes I need to test everything we want for insurance. And so our panel of lab work, if you go to Quest and have it done and insurance doesn't cover it, it's $1,600. but in our office it's $398. So it's, out of network pricing is a lot cheaper. As far as follow-up testing goes, if we, find something and we have to repeat labs in 6, 8, or 12 weeks, then certainly there's a reason I'm rechecking it. I have the diagnosis codes. So then at that point I can prescribe, a Quest or LabCorp prescription with the diagnosis codes to have insurance cover it. And generally they will. If you've had prior lab testing done, then I utilize that and we only order what we need. There's no point in repeating it. The food sensitivity testing is not covered by insurance, and Quest and LabCorp actually won't even draw it. So that's something that has to be done by our office or a private phlebotomist.
And how much is that?
That's a good question. I think it's like around 547, somewhere around that. The food sensitivity testing itself is the most expensive test we have. But it also shows 184 different food sensitivities and 15 allergens. So it's very extensive, and it's going to tell us exactly what your body is able to tolerate and not able to tolerate. It shows us antibody levels, so the actual antibody marker for 184 foods, and gives us a level of mild, moderate, severe. So we know how to eliminate and what we can eventually bring back into the diet. Yes, we offer in-person and virtual, whether it's the consult. Even if you are virtual, we can do the blood testing still. We can still order it and have, the in-office pricing. The kits in the orders just get sent to you virtually. So that's definitely a possibility.
So it's like droplets then, like prick.
No, it's a serum test, and then we send the serum to the lab. It's a special kit that we have as far as it's called ALA-test. So it's a serum test. We send the blood sample to the lab, and then they do the droplets within the lab. Yeah, there are finger prick tests out there. I just don't know that they're in my opinion, as accurate. Yeah. Awesome questions. Anything else?
Great information.
Well, thank you. And I do have a sign up sheet here. So if you want to put your information down, we can reach out to you and talk to you more specifically. I know you guys are virtual, but if you do have more specific questions or are interested, I'll put my email here in the chat, first of all, and you can email me. Or if you want to write your email or phone number into this chat, I'm happy to write your name down, and that way we can give you a call more specifically. But feel free to reach out. And our website is there. And I'm going to send this recording to Erica so that she can email it out, and then I'll include all my information so people can contact us if they want. So thank you guys for joining virtually. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you. It was wonderful.
And I pride myself on being like intelligent about this, and I learned.
Yeah,